Okay, we're here with Mark Raaphorst at Sandwich Island Composites. On the right, we have one of the newest F-18 customs. So an 18-footer. Is this 18 or 18.6?
18.4.
18.4, okay. And then this one is the version 2 F-16. So probably the same question that you get asked a lot, which is what I'm trying to figure out, is what's the difference between F-18 and F-16? And when will I choose one versus the other?
When you paddle surf in waters that have consistent 15 plus knots, I would recommend and try to talk you into an F-16. If your balance is good and you paddle in waters that are anywhere from 5 to 15, sometimes higher, then and your budget can afford it because they're a couple $100 more, I would try to talk you into an 18-footer. What happens with the 18-footer, they will create a lot less drag. They have a lot less drag. And so ultimately, in terms of hull speed, the hull speed is not that much greater in F-16 or an F-18, but you get a lot less tired. So if you're going to paddle for a couple hours, your timing is going to improve because you have some oomph left at the end of a run. Like on a 16-footer with a fairly flat bottom, when you're booking down a wave, you'll probably reach 13, 14, 15 miles an hour. It might only be 12 miles an hour. It's actually slower when you catch a bump, but it will glide longer, and when there is no bumps or tiny bumps, this has advantage. So I would love to sell this F-18 saying, generally it's a faster board all around, but that I'll be lying. It is more like your average speed is higher and you have some energy left at the end of a run. It glides through the water, cuts through the water, more smooth. I hope that explains the difference.
So as we're looking at the design then, this one on the left, which is F-16, is a planing hull.
Planing hull, yes.
And the one on the right is a displacement hull.
Yeah. And I have something to say about those two concepts. I think with stand-up paddling as well as lay-down paddling, we're often in the middle of those two phenomena. It's not like we're only planing or we're only displacing. It's not like at 5 miles an hour you're displacing and at 7 miles an hour you're planing. We're in a gray area. So whatever does really good when you're almost playing is probably a fast board. People say, oh yeah, I have a planing board or I have a displacing board. I find with these boards, although the edges are rounded, there's no sharp edges in the tail, and it's considered the displacement type board, we're still planing if we're catching a bump. We're still gliding over the water. The 18-footer.
Right.
We're still gliding over the water. Mm-hmm. The thing with an F-16 is you're never truly cutting through the water because there's no knife type spreading of the water. The whole bottom is pretty much flat. And where this bow spreads the water with less drag.
Okay, so let's take a look at the differences then in these two boards. Obviously one's longer, right? And then the idea for that is that the more of it that's in the water, the better it glides, or?
Yes, hull speed in a displacement situation is correlated to water line. So the longer the water line,
meaning how much of the board's in the water?
Correct. Yes, what is touching the water, the more is touching the water, the higher the hull speed. In displacement only. In planing, it's almost the opposite. When gliding over the water, you want as little board in the water. So two different theories, and that's why when you're riding this 18-footer, you're riding it more from the center. And a good way to ride the F-16 is get into the bump from the middle of the board and then step back and get that board out of the water.
And then try to stay on the bumps from the back.
Yes. Yes. Planing. Yes. So I've seen people that are getting used to the board find themselves too often in the middle of the board. You want to be walking back there. My rear foot is standing on top of the steering system when I catch a good bump.
So the difference on this one is you have this more of a that dome-shaped nose to keep the water off the deck, but on this one the idea is that it's smaller chop anyway, so the water's not really coming on the deck.
Well, I would like to afford to raise the nose even more, but we're getting to a disadvantage when
the weight.
we get a side breeze going. It acts too much like a sail, and with too much disadvantage. Shaping is all a trade-off. Some things are good, some things are they don't pay off. So I made them before where the bow is like 8 inches thick, but then just to simply turn around, it was like impossible. There's too much windage here. So
you mean if there's a side wind at all?
Correct.
Then you're just going sideways.
Yes. Yes.
So this one, obviously, we can tell from the noses they're quite a bit different. This one has a lot of rocker. Well, compared to the 16 that's on the right, the blue one has a lot more rocker.
Yes.
And the nose shape is really different. So maybe explain. This is the 18 is designed to knife through the water?
Knife through the water, yeah. And we don't mind if it pokes once in a while and cuts through the water. With this extreme nose rocker like the F-16, we try to stay above the wave. And here, because you only have a couple inches of nose rocker, you're going to go through the wave. And that's a different way of thinking. But if you had this amount of nose rocker and this board, you would be riding still a 12-foot board, although it was 18 foot long.
So what if you made something that was, let's say, 14 or 16, and there was more of this displacement type flat rocker situation? Are you? Is it not really utilizing the efficiencies because it's still kind of short?
I made some boards for Dana Point where it's fairly flat water, and what happens when you're shaping and you shape a bow like this, it is so hard to make a nice transition from something knifey into the necessary stable platform that we need to stay upright. You need like 23, 24 inches of flat platform in order to stand. That's at least my latest calculation. You can make it 27 or 28 inches wide, but you need some stable platform. Otherwise, you spend too much time trying to correct yourself, and then you're not gaining any speed anyway. So, what I'm getting at is, if you go shorter, 12.6, 14 foot, you got to go from this knifey bow section so fast into this flat section that it becomes an ugly transition. Already, right now, it's tricky to do. To go from knife to flat. That's the beauty about an OC1, is you can continue that curve so gradually. An typical OC1 is 14, 15 inches wide with a real cutting bow. And now people want that same bow, but our boards are twice as wide as an OC1 and a third shorter. A typical OC1 is 21.6, 21.2. Our boards are 16 and 18, so we have less length to work with and twice the width.
Let's look at the bottom of this thing, so we can see the differences between the 18 and 16. Because it's definitely much rounder looking where the edges of where the rails are at on this 18, right?
Yeah, there's no edges even in the tail section.
So the way that the balance feels is going to be different, right? Like this one, at least this one on the right, the 16, you still have some of that hard, little bit of a sharpness on the rail to bounce off of, whereas this one On the 18, no more.
No more. No.
But that also creates more speed or more glide on the 18.
Glide, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.